So the mask is back, okay? And this is a mid card, let's be honest. It's actually overrated. But let's just get into it. Let's just jump into it, okay? Austin Hubbard and Medeiros. I haven't really watched Marquel. I have of Austin Hubbard. Maybe I have watched Marquel, but I haven't remembered any, and I haven't rewatched any tapes. So, um, I mean, judging off of the records and seeing that Austin Hubbard lost to Alexander Hernandez, who even in his last fight didn't look great. I mean, what happened to Alexander Hernandez's power? Maybe he's just not landing clean, and maybe the guys that he's fighting are bracing for impact, and so their chin is hardened, and so they're not taking that much damage. But it seems like, what is his name? Alexander Hernandez. It seems like he's not really putting people out like he did against Beneil Dariush, for example. So, yeah, I mean, Alexander Hernandez, he's just not like the same as he was when he was in his prospect days, and for that reason, I'm gonna have to pick Medeiros because if you're losing by split decision, even if it's a split decision to Alexander Hernandez in Austin Hubbard, I just don't like that for him. So I'm gonna have to say a decision. But maybe his chin, seeing as he's kind of on the older side compared to Marco Murdos, maybe his chin or Medeiros, maybe his chin will be deteriorated. But I'm gonna have to go with the decision for that one. And then Jamal Emmers versus Gabriel Miranda. Now, Gabriel Miranda, he might have decent jiu-jitsu. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to see that really. And he actually did look okay in the first round against Morgan Charrier. But Jamal Emmers, it's Morgan Charrier that he fought, right? Yeah. Jamal Emmers, he's actually looking decent against guys that he's even losing against. Even though his record looks kind of 50-50, judging off of the LW, all that, and that he's 20-8. Gabriel Miranda is not a lot better. He's got one less loss, and anyways, his striking defense isn't all there. He'll try some spinning stuff, and then he'll not have his hands right on his chin, so it's not great for him. And Jamal Emmers, until he was just losing the dogfight against, what was it, Nate Landwehr, he was winning. It's just that one moment where he got the uppercut on his chin. It seems like he's not really good against uppercuts, but I don't think that Gabriel Miranda is going to be landing any good ones. And aside from that uppercut, he was doing fine. It's just the uppercut that led to the defeat, I'm pretty certain of. I'd have to rewatch that again, maybe, because I watched that one like a week ago, so that one was like not too fresh in my memory, but I'm pretty sure it was the uppercut. And before then, he was pretty much clearly winning, and he was actually going to stop Nate Landwehr, it seemed. But it just didn't happen, so he's got a better reach. The height's practically the same. I'm going to say he's going to be more focused, more hungry, seeing as he was so close to winning but not quite there. And I'm going to have to say a round 2 TKO. I'm going to say early in that second round. Not a vicious KO. I don't think he quite has that power, but I'm going to say a TKO early in the second round. And then Rafa Garcia versus Vinc Pichel. Ultimately, what I'm going to base this on, I've seen both their last fights. Vinc Pichel actually had a better showing technically than Rafa Garcia in the last fight, but it was against a much lower opposition in my opinion. Like Grant Dawson is a top 15 level guy, top 15, 16, 17, somewhere around there. Grant Dawson. And yes, he got finished, which Grant Dawson doesn't really finish people. But Rafa Garcia otherwise has some okay wins, like Clay Guida, for example. And granted, yeah, it's an old Clay Guida, and it's a decision. It's not the best, but Vinc Pichel is losing to those types of guys these days. In my opinion, Ishmael Bonfirm is like a modern version of Clay Guida in a similar way of his stance, maybe not his grappling, so to speak, but his stance, the way he guards, his like he tries to go at you quite fast early in the fight, but aside from then, he doesn't really actually push the pace afterwards. It's only early in the fight does he really keep at that pace. Sure, he tries to make it look like he keeps it at that pace, but otherwise he doesn't really. And then we also see the age, right? it's not a great look. 42 years old. That's the main thing for me. Yes, it's like Rafa Garcia isn't that next level, but he's going to definitely show improvements in the octagon more so than a 42-year-old. That much I know. So I'm gonna say a decision. I haven't really seen much finishing potential from a Rafa Garcia, but I'm gonna have to say a decision for him. I think that makes sense. And then Julia Polastiri and Lupita Godinez. Julia isn't that special. Lupita isn't like high caliber championship material really, but she's that next level. Let's be honest. And yes, she had some close decisions against Verena Genderova, I believe, and Mackenzie Dern. But I actually did think that she lost both those fights, even though I'm pretty sure they were both split decisions. And otherwise, yes, she's been very active prior to that. But Julia is not really special anywhere. Maybe she'll have a slight advantage in the grappling, but Lupita does have that short, stocky sort of Ilia Topuria boxing style where she has her hands fairly low enough to push down on any takedowns. It's just the jiu-jitsu that she could get tangled up in that could be a problem, or these like bigger fighters for the strawweight division, because she's not even a big strawweight. But I don't think that she'll be able to pull off any of that, and I think that Lupita is the far slicker boxer, and so kicks is going to be not really that effective, especially in women's MMA, let's be honest. So unless it's a head kick, granted. But I'm going to have to say a decision for Lupita Godinez. Not really something special of a pick here. And we have Maziquel Acosta versus Christian Rodriguez. Now, this one is actually an interesting pick, let's be honest. I know that most people are going to be picking Rodriguez, but it seems like every single time I pick Rodriguez, he ends up losing. And then every time I don't pick Rodriguez, he ends up winning. It's like he never really wants to obey my picks. So I'm gonna have to really, I had to really look back at the tape for this one. And one thing I noticed is Christian Rodriguez, he doesn't like kicks too much. Now, granted, it's not like a glaring weakness, but it's something that people don't go to enough. And I think that Maziquel Costa is showing in his last fight to actually outkick Andre Fili, who, granted, isn't the greatest kicker ever. He likes his hands a little bit better. He still goes to it, and so the fact that he was outdoing him shows that he definitely has an elite kicking game, in my opinion. Seeing the tape, my opinion says he's definitely going to have the better striking in at the very least the kicks. Now the grappling is interesting because Christian Rodriguez is going to be the more physically imposing one. I definitely believe that. But Christian Rodriguez, I know this is MMA math a little bit here, but Christian Rodriguez did get guillotined in his last loss, and Maziquel Acosta actually, his last win was a guillotine. So it's very interesting here. I think that the jiu-jitsu is going to nullify Christian Rodriguez's attempts at any guard passes or anything significant on the ground. And so, yes, he could win maybe like a split decision robbery again or something along those lines. But I actually think that Maziquel Costa has a better chance than Christian Rodriguez here. I think that the boxing is interesting. I think Christian Rodriguez definitely has the harder hands and the tighter boxing combinations. He kind of reminds me, maybe just on the impact solely, but he kind of reminds me of a Jack Della Maddalena when he actually lets his hands go and gets some combinations down. But Maziquel Costa, I think that he's just I think he's just close enough in the boxing to where he's not gonna get completely outdone by Christian Rodriguez in the boxing. So I'm gonna have to say, actually, I'm gonna say like maybe a second round submission due to a competitive first round. Maziquel Costa keeps the kicks at range, body kicks, sometimes leg kicks, and then he tries to go upstairs maybe late in the round with a head kick. But Christian Rodriguez, most people are going to say he won that round, even though it's a very close one, because he landed the better shots in close when he got there. But then it's going to get a little closer, even still more close in the second round. And I think that Maziquel Costa is going to eventually get taken down because Christian Rodriguez is going to be like, okay, well, that was too close. I need to actually try and implement the grappling to show my superior, show that next level, and secure these next two rounds. But then he gets subbed. But I don't know, maybe a triangle. I'm just going to throw that out there. We just haven't seen enough of both these guys to say, just like on the jiu-jitsu sphere, what is the strengths and different and weaknesses as far as every single position. We know that guillotine isn't Christian Rodriguez's strong suit, and that is for Mizuko Costa, but I'm going to say a triangle. I'm going to say maybe Christian Rodriguez tries to land some ground and pound, and he just gets caught in a triangle. And yeah, submission round two. Ateba Gautuer and Jose Medina. Hopefully, I'm not mispronouncing that stuff. This is like, to be honest, I was not impressed with Jose Medina in his last few fights, and I mean, how can you expect that as well? Seeing as he has two L's, 11 and 4, he's basically the same guy that Ringy Nakamura beat by decision, and then he comes back and gets a KO over a Contender Series guy who was a highly touted prospect. He's kind of like that, but for middleweight. Let's be honest. I mean, he looks like, no offense, but he does look like the same guy even in the picture. But 22 years old, 8-1. I mean, look, I haven't done a whole lot of tape on this one either. This is probably the one I know least about, to be honest. I do remember watching his last couple of fights, Jose Medina. I don't remember watching Ateba. But Jose Medina, I certainly have, and I don't remember him looking impressive, so I'm going to have to say a round 1 KO. This one's definitely going to be one of my least educated picks, seeing as I don't really know too much about both the guys, but I mean, it's definitely going to be an interesting one, and probably a finish, so pretty decent one to look out for, actually. And then Edgar Chairez versus CJ Vergara. This one could very well go to decision, but seeing as CJ Vergara has gotten finished a lot lately, I'm going to have to say actually like a late submission in the third round. I'm going to say it gets really competitive in the second round due to CJ Vergara getting inside, landing some hooks maybe, a couple of jabs, maybe more than a couple, maybe a few more jabs. And then Edgar Chairez is going to try and stay more to his kicking game. Maybe he's going to try some long rangey jabs himself, but ultimately I think his kicking is where it's at as well, and he has these long arms, so definitely I'm going to pick a submission here because we saw in his no contest win as well, he subbed a guy, and then I believe he did as well in the win rematch. Yeah, triangle choke. So even though it was like, oh, there was some confusion with the no contest, the DQ, actually, it was a no contest, but even though there was some confusion there, it was pretty clear that the dude actually got the sub, and if he kept holding, he would have finished him. It's just that the dude went limp, but then he went back to consciousness. Some kind of weird situation like that happened, and so we know that he has a really good submission game. And diversity in that as well. I believe that the no contest was a guillotine. Well, it doesn't say, but I'm pretty certain it was. And so, we do know as well that his game is it's submissions as well. Sure, he can hurt people on the feet like he did against Joshua Van, but one, I believe Joshua Van took that on short notice anyway, and two, he's a chinny guy anyway. So I don't really see him finishing CJ Vergara like a Ramazan Tamirev. Is that it? Let me just check here. Yeah. Ramazan Tamirev. That guy has some nasty, like, wind-up hooks, like, and overhands, too. Very devastating. So I don't think that he's going to be able to finish CJ Vergara with the hands, but he could hurt him with the kicks, maybe hands as well. Just like a combinations against the fence, and then either CJ Vergara shoots or Edgar Chairez goes for some sort of jiu-jitsu entanglement, and then ultimately I'm going to say maybe guillotine, I'm going to say. Submission in the third. Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Kevin Borjas. This is a really good underdog. This is the one you need to pick here, okay? I'm going to go with I'm going to have to go with I'm going to have to say a late round 1 KO. I'm going to say a late round 1 KO. What people don't remember about... I know that everybody remembers Ode Osbourne almost pretty much KO'd Ronaldo Rodriguez. But what people don't remember about that fight is that in the third round, he actually lost that. I think that Ode Osbourne won that fight. I think that round 3 was a clear Ode Osbourne round. And I think that the judges were just seeing all of the missed shots at the end of the round by Ronaldo Rodriguez on top. And they thought, oh my gosh, surely some of that's landing. But no, you go back to the replay, none of those shots were landing. None of that landed. And then Kevin Borjas, yes, he has a problem with leg kicks, but Ronaldo Rodriguez doesn't really throw leg kicks. He threw like 2 in that entire fight, maybe 3. And then in And then it was only at the third round when he was actually like when he should have thrown more leg kicks in the first round. And then Kevin Borjas has a really good one too. Specifically, that two was really devastating in his last fight. Granted, he lost due to leg kicks and then ground and pound, so that is worrisome. If he does get in a bad position on the ground, it's probably over. But Kevin Borjas has much better striking. Ronaldo Rodriguez has an overhand, maybe a jab that's really not that good, and yeah, I think that the hype is not really warranted. I think that this is an amazing underdog. I think that the odds are perfectly encapsulating what I'm saying here. It's like Ronaldo Rodriguez has the hype, so of course he has to be the favorite, but it's a lot closer than what people think. And he even has the height, and I mean, not the height, but the reach, 3-inch reach, and so I think he's going to use that to great effect, Kevin Borjas. And one more thing against Ode Osborne, for example, in against a guy who has very, very, very thin legs, just like Kevin Borjas, he did not go to the leg kicks when that was a really good tool to use there. So I don't expect him to do that against Kevin Borjas, who got finished pretty much due to leg kicks and then ground and pound in the last fight of his. So if he's not going to do that against Ode Osborne, why should I expect him to do that against Kevin Borjas? So I mean, I think that he's just going to piece him up, and then in the maybe last 30 seconds of the fight, he gets a doctor, not a doctor stoppage, but like he's going to get a bit of a pity TKO because Ronaldo Rodriguez is just getting battered all over the place. So it's going to be a round 1 KO, maybe a pity KO, like just up against the fence. He's just eating too many unanswered shots. And then David Martinez versus Simon Oliveira. Last two fights not great either. Similar story to that what was it, Jose Medina? Yeah, similar situation with Jose Medina. Not great situations with him. David Martinez, on the other hand, he's had a ton of KOs. You look throughout his career, you look at his wins, it's pretty devastating for the most part. I actually thought, judging off of the picture before I was doing this video, that Simon Oliveira would be taller. He just kind of has a more like straightforward stance here. But against David Martinez, it's actually a lesser in, pretty much same reach, but lesser in height. It's pretty crazy that I don't really know how that happens. Maybe it's just a measurement issue from the UFC or from whoever actually does the measurements. But either way, this one I don't know too great about either. But from what I've seen of David Martinez, I haven't paid attention to too much of the technique here. But from what I've seen of him, he's got the power. He's got a tight, more boxing heavy stance, and then Simon Oliveira, he's got a bit of that like kickboxing sort of stance at times, and he's got a long neck, so I think that he's got an easy target, Martinez. So I'm gonna have to say a round 1 KO. Could be round 2, could be round 3, could be more competitive than I think, but I think it's pretty safe to say that he's gonna get the KO. And then Raul Rosas Jr. versus Vince Morales. I'm actually genuinely surprised how many people are thinking that this is going to be a submission. Has nobody watched Vince Morales' last fight, even his fight before that, on short notice? I think it was against Taylor Lapilus, who's actually like just outside top 15 material, even though he went to the PFL because some sort of situation with the UFC, he got cut. Has nobody saw his fights, his last two fights, which were objectively, in my opinion, against a in his last fight, similar level of opposition to Raul Rosas Jr., and then against Taylor Lapilus, definitely better opposition. So, I mean, on the feet, I think that Vince Morales is actually underrated here. And in the grappling, the only thing I could see Raul Rosas Jr. doing, due to Vince Morales' grappling, his scrambles, his jiu-jitsu defense, I think that the only thing Raul Rosas can do here really is stall and get control time, really. So I'm going to actually say that this is going to be a very boring and hype-losing decision for Raul Rosas. Although I could totally see Vince Morales winning this. I genuinely don't understand how it was a unanimous decision loss for against Vince Morales in his last fight. That one I actually gave 30-27 to Vince Morales, and you could say 29-28, but how on earth did every judge say or go against Vince Morales in that last fight? Vince Morales is underrated, and he's gone against some young, hungry prospects. It's just that he's not had the like standout performance, and I think that he could get that here against a young, super hyped up prospect in Raul Rosas Jr. But I think that Raul Rosas, he's going to be more young, more athletic, more fast. I think seeing as Vince Morales is 34, probably not learning anything, probably not, I mean, not anything, okay, I shouldn't say that, but probably not adding new tools to his variety of attacks. His you know, it's just like Raul Rosas is at the youngest still in the UFC. I'm pretty sure. Maybe there's like a 19-year-old, but he's 20 and 5 months. He's gonna be learning way more than a Vince Morales. I know that much. Okay, I'm not wording it the best, but you know what I mean. And then Kelvin Gastelum and Joe Pyfer. Kelvin Gastelum has a decent 1-2 at times, albeit it's somewhat predictable. And Joe Pyfer, yes, he's actually not as fast as people think, but he does have power. And he's not the most defensively sound. Like, he'll keep his hands up, but not towards his chin very much. Sometimes he does, but this is actually a more competitive one than people think. And I honestly think that, Kelvin Gastelum, he is decently fast, specifically at middleweight. I think that just because he got a lot of losses, people were saying, oh, bro, no, you got to go to welterweight, was actually stupid because he was going up against the top guys. Now, granted, he is older and he is certainly out of his prime. You could see that in his last two fights, albeit Sean Brady is actually really, really, really good, but even then he still was throwing like really bad strikes. Like he was throwing things with no setups and poorly telegraphed, just slower, much slower than in previous fights. And Daniel Rodriguez was catching him coming in as well on the that's what I mean. Like his overhand, his hooks, and his 1-2 are all getting much more predictable. It's because he doesn't switch up his variety of tools too often. He'll like against Adesanya, he threw a head kick that stumbled him, but even then it showed that he didn't have the fight IQ because he went for a takedown when he clearly rocked him. And even then, he doesn't really go to that head kick anymore. He basically has the 1-2. He has the overhands that he sometimes goes towards, which is actually pretty devastating at times in his career. And he has the hooks, which are pretty accurate, but he has to get in close to land those usually. And Joe Pyfer, I just think that he's too vicious to be trying to go like back and forth, hop, which is kind of what he does. He has that like karate stand style, and then making it too predictable for him. I think that Joe Pyfer is going to see this. He's seen this style before, and I think that he's just going to get a KO. I'm just going to say it how it is. He could get a submission if he's not liking the speed on the feet, because Kelvin Gastelum at middleweight does actually have a decent speed advantage, I think. But Joe Pyfer, he's very accurate when he does throw. Granted, again, he doesn't have the best defense in the world, so I could totally see him just getting pieced up, and then the KO shot comes out of nowhere. But ultimately, I'm going to have to say a round 2, maybe late round 2 TKO. It could be vicious, actually. I'm going to say a vicious, absurd round 2 TKO, or KO, not even TKO. I think that this is going to get him into the rankings conversations once again, and I think he's probably going to get like I don't know, Roman Kopylov, something like that. Exciting fight there. And I think that Kelvin Gastelum does have paths to victory here. However, this is not my favorite underdog of the card. That would probably go to Kevin Borjas. Or what we're going to talk about in the main event, or even the co-main event. There's better underdogs here to pick, in my opinion. And then Manuel Torres versus Drew Dober. Like, for example, Manuel Torres. Manuel Torres is very devastating, very vicious. His step-in elbows, albeit he's very, very reckless, but his step-in elbows are vicious, devastating, absurd. I mean, it was the most nasty one against Nicholas Mota. And Drew Dober, he's getting KO'd more. He's getting stopped more. I'll grant him this. It's not a flatline KO, but I think that against a guy like Manuel Torres, you can't risk that sort of like you can't risk taking that much damage against Bobby Green, against Jean Silva, against this guy's way more devastating. And even though he doesn't throw as many shots as a Bobby Green, as a maybe Matt Frivola, even though he's also kind of sometimes he'll throw one piece, and then he'll come in with 1-2s more often. Sometimes he's also kind of like a Manuel Torres in the sense that he uses energetic blast towards you. Not like a blast takedown, but you get what I'm saying. He like uses bursts of energy. But against these guys where he's just taking a lot of damage in these fights, it's like even when he's winning, he's still taking so much damage. He's getting dropped all over the place against Terrence McKinney. And I get that on tech-wise, technicality, technique, he's a little better. But maybe even more than a little bit. But Manuel Torres is not facing a long-rangey sniper here. He's not going to face a guy, in my opinion, with the same power as an Ignacio Bahamondes, nor the timing and accuracy. I think that Ignacio Bahamondes is really sharp on the feet, and I think that Manuel Torres, it was just a nightmare matchup for him. Otherwise, against all these other ranked guys like a Drew Dober, who's on the decline, who is past his prime, I think we can say, who is getting rocked and knocked down all over the place, who's getting cuts and scar tissue, which is not good against a guy who likes to use those elbows and who likes to come forward with blitzing shots, blitzing punches. I don't like this for Drew Dober. I'm going to have to say mid round 2 TKO. Midway through the round, I could see him like charging in with maybe a upwards elbow. It scratches the forehead of Drew Dober, maybe cutting up some scar tissue that he already had, and then ultimately that scar tissue is going to go into not the scar tissue, but the blood is going to drip down into his eyes, and he's not going to be able to see as well, similar to the John Silva fight, except even worse, and then he's just going to get hurt by even more shots, get cracked up against the fence, and then he's going to get like it's not going to be a pity TKO up against the fence, but it's going to be like he is not going to get like fully knocked down or knocked out, but it's going to be one where he gets like hurt badly up against the fence, where it's like, okay, you could see why they stopped that, because a couple more shots and he would have gone out probably. So I'm going to have to say round 2, pretty harsh but fair KO or TKO up against the fence. Yeah. Brandon Moreno, Steve Erceg, and this one is a crazy odds, and it's crazy that most Tapology people are picking Moreno. Now, listen, Moreno is really good. He definitely looked great against Amir Albazi, but Amir Albazi is not Steve Erceg. They're completely different styles here. Yes, he's still pretty young, Brandon Moreno. He's 31. He can still improve for sure. But Steve Erceg, in the range of boxing where he can let his shots go but then not get hit, he's amazing. We all know this. I mean, multiple people have said this. Kenny Okoye, MMHA. Some other people have also said this. But those are the notable ones that also have talked about this. Steve Erceg, at his boxing range, he does amazing at that range where he can just throw little small combinations or a jab or, even just a hook as well. His left hook as well is pretty good. In the and his elbows when you come crashing forward, that range where he's just letting where he's able to do his boxing and then slip out of the way, it's amazing. He's definitely the best at that in the division, best at that kind of a boxing range, and he also uses his range quite well, even though he has a lower range than Brandon Moreno, or reach rather I should say. He uses it better, I would say. And Brandon Moreno against a guy like Brandon Royval has actually used sort of an overhand style to a decent effect, but he definitely doesn't have the same power as a Kai Kara-France. That's the way that Kai Kara-France was able to get that done, because you look at the Kai Kara-France fight, and Kai Kara-France actually, he was basically not able to get much off. It was actually Steve Erceg for the most part doing what he does best, and he was actually getting good uppercuts, good shots around the guard, and the only thing that Kai Kara-France, until he got the KO shot, could do was just throw body jabs. And that is something that Steve Erceg does have that's actually quite open. And Brandon Moreno did finish Kai Kara-France, funny enough, with a body shot with the kick. And that's kind of worrying to see as well. But this is a closer fight than what either side is predicting for the most part. I think that most of the Brandon Moreno people are certainly overrating his chances here. It's a much closer fight. And I think that Erceg is just a little bit better. I think that people need to rewatch that championship fight with Pantoja for Steve Erceg. I have no idea how Bedtime MMA, like a month ago, said, no, dude, I actually rewatched that fight. Alejandro Pantoja won that fight. He did not. How are you so dumb when it comes to that take specifically? I like Bedtime MMA. He's like the funniest MMA YouTuber these days, I'm going to be honest. But when it comes to actually MMA analysis, he doesn't know what he's watching. Objectively, it's at least a 3-2. It's definitely one of the worst robberies of all time, because you could even score it 4-1. I gave it 4-1. I can understand why you could give the fifth round to Alejandro Pantoja, because he did have the back take for like 3 seconds, and he did get the mount for like 2 seconds, and that is maybe more contributing to the end of the fight than whatever like decent shots Steve Erceg landed at range and then got on Alejandro Pantoja when he was just kind of crashing forward and he counters. That is a good argument, but in the second, third, and fourth, he was clearly outstriking him. In the third, yes, it was close, but Steve Erceg was winning that. I mean, Alejandro Pantoja was winning that up until the elbow, which actually really, really, really visually cut Alejandro Pantoja so bad that he had to hold his freaking scar there. And even when he was walking up to his stool, he was still holding that from bleeding that cut. So even though yes, you could say up until that point, oh no, bro, Pantoja round three. I don't know why this has become a rant about that fight, but it's just really annoying how fans have a revisionist history with that one. Steve Erceg should absolutely be the champion. He won 2, 3, and 4 at least, and then he could have even won round 5. And anyway, Brandon Moreno, he just, in my opinion, he has tendencies that Steve Erceg can take advantage of. Brandon Moreno is like a similar build to Kai Kara-France, a little taller for sure, but it's not much. It says he's 5'7". He's more like 5'5.5", in my opinion. It's just at certain angles of camera shots of them two facing together, it looks like Steve Erceg is just like a couple inches or an inch taller, but it's actually, no, if you get the right angle, you'll see Brandon Moreno is more like 5'5.5". So Steve Erceg, he can implement similar game plan to Kai Kara-France. It just depends on Brandon Moreno's film study of like a Kai Kara-France fight, for example, against Steve Erceg. Does he have the film study to see the tendencies of Steve Erceg, where you could land these overhands if you time it well, if you time it on Steve Erceg letting his lead hand go away from his face, because then if you target the side of his head where he's poking with his lead hand, then you can come up top with an overhand, and Steve Erceg could get chinned. It's only the fact that Brandon Moreno doesn't quite have the same power as a Kai Kara-France. And honestly, one last thing I'll say on this, Steve Erceg doesn't actually have the tendencies or no, he does have tendencies, but he doesn't have this sort of blindsidedness towards his tendencies. He notices these tendencies in his interviews leading up to this fight. You'll actually notice that he talks about those tendencies, and he says, "Yeah, I was too lateral with my movement. I should have stepped to the side. I should have moved out of the way." Granted, he should also talk more about the fact that he lets his lead hand away from his face, and sometimes both of his hands aren't all the way on his chin when people are coming forward with heavy shots. Sometimes he gets a little too confident in his striking, and that's definitely something to look out for. But like I just said, he acknowledges his mistakes, and he doesn't ever show a sort of cocky arrogance towards his performances. He even says like, "Oh, I lost against Alejandro Pantoja," which is a good mindset going into these fights, saying, "I need to improve more. I'm the young guy that's coming in, fighting all these well-known veterans of the game." So I'm going to have to say that's a great mindset, and I'm going to say a 48-47, 48-47, 49-46 probably for Steve Erceg. I'm going to say one judge maybe during like a third round, it's kind of close, so he's going to give it to Steve Erceg because maybe he lands a nice elbow when Brandon Moreno comes crashing in. I don't think that he's nearly as reckless as Alejandro Pantoja, 100%, but he definitely is a little more reckless than you remember. If you look at his past fights, yes, Brandon Moreno's smart. He certainly got a good game plans at moments, but he still kind of throws like a lot less. With Kai Kara-France, he's like, that's his game, overhands pretty much. Sometimes he'll throw like decent 1-2, decent little boxing fundamentals, but when it comes to Kai Kara-France, his game is pretty much overhands or meaty, large, powerful hooks. And Brandon Moreno isn't as skilled when it comes to that. He's good with the straight shots, and that's what he likes to do. But against Steve Erceg, that's not going to be there as much. So, yeah, that's my UFC Fight Night Mexico. Full card predictions, Brandon Moreno versus Steve Erceg. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the Fight Night. Let's go.